And I am joined now by State GOP Chairman Ed Cox. Thank you very much, Chairman, for joining us.
It's always a pleasure to be with you.
So now your convention is complete. You have a nominee who was not the nominee that you preferred, Rick Lazio. You preferred Steve Levy. You have two primaries for U.S. Senate and for the senior senator position, and also for the temporary position that the unexpired term rather that Hillary Clinton vacated. Was your convention a success?
This is a great success. It's almost unprecedented, the amount of energy that has come out of this convention. It was unique in that it was the grassroots of this convention that decided, represented by the 450 committee men and women of the Republican Party of New York State who are in touch with the grassroots, or in touch with the people of the state, as opposed to the Democratic convention last week, where it was the bosses who made the decision. That was all top down, and the committee folk just didn't really participate in their decision making.
But
that's why we have the energy that we have coming out of this convention.
But you also have fractures. I mean, you have a lot of disunity in your party. Clearly, they can't decide on certain...
The Republicans, when we go out of this, we're united. Even though in the two Senate races where we have primaries, I am confident that they will understand. You'll have two people firing at the sitting senators who have not represented the people of New York State. You have Chuck Schumer, who is more concerned about being the majority leader rather than about the people of New York State. And you have Kirsten Gillibrand, who has flip-flop on just about every issue, and because she's weak and unelected, she has given support to groups like the corrupt Acorn Group, federal funding for that. Only 7 senators voted for it.
You won't be choosing sides in these primaries as you chose sides between Steve Levy and Rick Lazio.
That was a very unique case of a Democrat who had governed in Suffolk County like a Republican, had been cross-endorsed by the Republicans, won with 96% of the vote. He wanted to become Republican, and part of his coming over was my endorsement of it. Rick Lazio, I've always said, is a great candidate and will make a great governor. I just thought because of Mr. Levy's record in Suffolk County that he would be a better candidate. But Rick Lazio has the Republican principles of fiscal responsibility, which is what the people of New York State are looking for at this time.
Okay, you didn't get your way, though. I mean, you tried to bring in a candidate from outside the party into the party and asked the party faithful to support him, and they rejected him, which is really, one could argue, a rejection of your leadership of the party.
Well, he hasn't been rejected, certainly, by the people of Suffolk County. He's going to be very active there and active across the state also, because he's now known statewide as a Republican, campaigning for our candidate all around the state, and particularly in Suffolk County and on Nassau and in Queens, where we've got Senate seats that are very important, because one of the most important things we're going to do this year is to win back a majority in the state Senate. At the moment, Democrats control everything in Albany. That is not good, because power corrupts.
What about, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. You said it a couple of times over the past 30 days. I was listening.
Glad you understand. That's
do you believe that your chairmanship is safe, actually? Because there was much talk of a possible no-confidence vote, that people were upset that you had brought a Democrat in and supported that person over Rick Lazio, who's been a Republican forever. The no-confidence vote did not materialize, but there's still some scuttlebutt among the rank and file that they're not pleased with you. They say you said you would raise a certain amount of money, that you haven't done that. They said
it's all talk, as is proven out to be. Look, we are a party. The most important thing is what's happening to the voters and forgotten taxpayers in New York State. Voters and the people of New York's families in New York State, they are hurting. They are hurting because of the Great Recession that we're just barely coming out of. You've got unemployment and underemployment at almost 20%. And families, because of that, the wage earner in the families may feel that they might lose their job. Their 401ks, their home values have crashed. They are saving more. They are spending less. They're closing their deficits. Then they look at Albany with billion-dollar deficits. They look at Washington with trillion-dollar deficits, and they say, now how are the next elected officials going to close those deficits? They said, no way are you going to tax us. We want people who are going to cut spending, and that's what Republicans stand for.
Okay, we haven't heard yet from Rick Lazio about his plan, what he will do, and how he will address the budget deficit, and I'm sure at some point he will be asked those questions, but you actually don't have complete unity, because you've got another candidate, Carl Palladino, who said just this morning, in contrary, to there's been a couple contrary statements, actually. Steve Levy has not yet said he's not going to run definitively. He might petition his way on. Carl Palladino, he might petition his way on. So you might yet end up with division at the top of the ticket.
No, those are all mights. We'll have to see what's happening. But let me tell you, I don't think that Rick Lazio is scared of a primary. George Pataki was not scared of one. You will recall in 1994, the same kind of circumstances. Dick Rosenbaum petitioned, a very prominent Republican, petitioned his way into a primary and gave a very spirited primary to George Pataki that just made him more battle-hardened and ready to go after the primary in September.
Has $10 million.
And that's why George Pataki won the governorship.
Okay.
So if there's a primary, I think that Rick Lazio would say, bring it on.
Okay, but he did actually. But if $10 million is spent, Carl Palladino, and you've already said the grassroots of the party elevated people like, for example, Gary Bernstein. That was the Tea Partier movement from Long Island, got behind Gary and really pushed him to take on Chuck Schumer. That wasn't exactly what was expected. It was expected, perhaps, was Jay Townsend might ride that endorsement from the Conservatives last week to a nomination here, and he got on the ballot, but it wasn't unanimous. So are you not concerned that that same Tea Party element or that same angry division in the party, if you will, might get behind Carl Palladino and fracture your vote so Andrew Cuomo will have an even bigger victory
Liz,
in
that's
November?
very complicated. The fact is that here, because it was the grassroots of our party speaking through their committee men and women, picked for that Senate seat Gary Bernstein, who was very much a part of the Tea Party movement. You also happen to be part of my Veterans for McCain campaign here in New York when I was chairman of the party. This is a very capable individual. He's the guy who led the CIA agents and the special operations people who kicked the Taliban out of Afghanistan after 9/11. This guy knows how to wage a battle, and he's going to wage a good battle. And Tea Party people respect him. They know him, and that's why the grassroots of our party, acting through the committee men and women, selected him as our designee going forward. And I'm sure that the race with Jay Townsend is going to be a very good race. I think they both know that we have to win that Senate seat for the people of New York State and for the people of America come November. And that's why you're going to have a spirited primary, but it's going to be directed at the sitting senator.
How much will you, as a party chairman and the party in general, have in terms of resources after this fairly lavish event, 3 days in New York City with a very expensive set must cost quite a bit? How much are you going to have go forward, and how much did this event cost, actually?
Well, let me just say, we raised at the dinner last night more than $1 million. That's in addition to the ongoing amounts we raised during the year for regular operation purposes. And, you know, in the last November 3 elections, I was elected on September 29th. We had 5 weeks in order between that time and November 3. In that 5 weeks, we raised directly or indirectly for those local campaigns $500,000. And Ed Mangano, unknown, beat Tom Suozzi for County Executive Nassau County.
Yep.
In Westchester County, and unknown, Rob Astorino beat the sitting County Executive, Andy Spano, with less funds. But the funds came in at the end, just like they did for Scott Brown. This is a year when people like our candidates now are going to go in and beat incumbents or people who are sitting officials like Attorney General Cuomo, who is running to be governor. We will beat them because we have the right principles, and that's the principles of fiscal conservative. We're going to close these state and federal deficits by cutting spending, rationalizing government, giving good, clean government to the people of New York State rather than by raising taxes, as Andrew Cuomo will do.
And your relationship with the Conservative Party?
Excellent. I've had an ongoing discussion with Mike Long. We've had dinner together.
You're not angry at him for jumping the gun with his convention?
Of course not. No. We have had good discussions, and I think we're going to be going forward arm in arm as we have in the past.
Okay, well, we will indeed be going forward, and we'll be hearing a lot more from you, Chairman. I appreciate it. Ed Cox, thanks for joining us.
It's always good to be with you.